It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey, and other comics from all over. We ended up in Japan because we wanted to see a place where you are welcomed with open arms when you enter, but you have to leave this civil rights hellhole in a tuba case, fleeing guards who have arms. Do they know that the fascists lost the war? The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
Mark Bailey, Mike Miller on Talk Funny. Mike, some of these will feel familiar to Mike and I because we did some sessions and then they, again, went into the ether.
And that's probably why we're still on the outside, right?
On the outside? Yeah.
Not in the big house?
Yeah.
So we're not going to talk about where that guy ended up, right?
Yeah.
And where my favorite acts ended up?
Oh, yeah. That one did go on. Sammy Gravano, we have no problem with you. Got no beef. Yeah, I think I told you that last time. He heard that on the podcast. He heard the stories we were talking about him. And, hey, nobody's perfect. And he goes, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying mistakes happen. He wrote me back. And he said, you got a problem? You got a problem with me? You're talking about me on the podcast. And I said, no, man, you got a podcast. I got a podcast. You're free to talk about me.
Yeah.
And I was talking
Please do.
Yeah.
Just don't mention where I live or what I do or how much you don't like me.
And the Sammy Gravano thing with when he was not funny, he was shouting at me when I was on stage, and then I was in fear for my life. And he goes, we were just going to rough you up. We weren't going to hurt you that bad. I'm like, oh, not that bad. Okay. Well, then that makes it okay. That doesn't make it illegal.
Because these things never get out of control.
That doesn't make it illegal at all. Watch Goodfellas with a guy named Spider who's serving drinks to Tommy. The short play by Joe Pesci. He's like, oh, you wanted a drink. I thought. Pulls out a gun. Hey, F you, Tommy. What'd he say? And then Robert De Niro goes, what's the world coming to? This guy's taking him out from a waiter? Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, nothing like that ever happened in real life.
Never happens.
That's why it's in the movie.
That's right.
So he said, no hard feelings. And he said, I wouldn't have really hurt you. But anyway, we're both in podcasting.
So where are you again in Japan?
Yeah, he said, next time you're in New York, pop on by and I'll buy you a beer. And I said, that's not going to happen. I said, would you give me a ride too? And he goes, yeah, you need a ride? We'll give you a ride. Who's we? I said, you know what?
Do you want to ride to the Barbizon Hotel?
That's something that's never, ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Sammy.
But he's hated, right? Like, he's not in the mob anymore, right? Because didn't he turn evidence on them?
Yeah, but all these guys are they all turn snitches. What's the other guy? He's been on Patrick.
And that was because of Giuliani, too, wasn't it? Rudy Giuliani was the guy who brought them all down.
He's been on Patrick Bet David. His name escapes me right now, but he's pretty famous. And he and Sammy Gravano had a debate on Patrick Bet David's show. And they're like, you're not a real mobster. You never were a real mobster. You always been a snitch. You always been a rat. It's like Goodfellas 3.
Wow.
It's like, you always been a rat. It's like, would you just call me? And Patrick Bet David, he talks like a gangster, too, because he's not native English speaker.
Yeah.
He's
got a very deep voice. He talks like this.
He talked like a Puerto Rican.
It's interesting accent.
With these guys, what they don't know.
Yeah. I guess that's a Persian accent. It doesn't sound. I guess that's a Persian accent.
He's like Persian, Assyrian, and Armenian.
Mm-hmm.
He's Armenian and Assyrian, born in Persia, born in Iran. So he doesn't get angry ever. But yeah, those guys were shouting at each other. They're like, you're the snitch. No, but you snitched first. No, I never snitched first. You snitched first. Like, you're a bigger rat. No, you're a bigger rat.
Wow, that must have been great. How long was that podcast? 3 hours?
3 hours. And Patrick Bet David said, okay, guys. He did this like 18 times. It's like, guys. And then they were going like, oh, you're a funny guy. No, you're a funny guy. He goes, guys, you both have books out. You both have podcasts. That's what we're here to talk about, not the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Not the 80s. Those guys are still living in the 80s. Come on. Those are their glory days.
They're like, Mike, I know you snitched, and I know I snitched, but you snitched first, so you're worse. And you got a better deal than I did, so you're worse than me. I snitched, but I got a horrible deal.
That's right.
So I'm not really a rat.
I got screwed over.
But he's Sammy Gravano. We love you, Sammy. I really do. I no hard feelings, and I listen to your podcast. He's got some amazing stories, and I guess. What's the statute of limitations for murder? Because he's got some really good ones.
Well, those guys knew everyone, and they were involved in all the businesses, like the trash business, obviously, and like a whole bunch of businesses back in the 80s.
I think what they do is when they retell these stories, they know how old the witnesses were, and they know the witnesses are past. I don't know what happened. The guy was only 22.
Yeah.
No, but I think, but they died of old age, obviously.
Yeah.
The witnesses. what else is going to happen to these witnesses against Sammy Gravano?
Yeah.
Of course they're going to die. They're not going to die in a Barbizon hotel accident.
Yeah.
I think he knows how old the witnesses are, the people that know the truth, the people that know things that he did, that he denies he did. And he can talk about it now because nobody's going to come out against him.
And if he couldn't, then the podcast would be boring, right?
Yeah.
So.
And his cohorts who are in on it with him, they're gone. I mean, these guys smoked like crazy.
And, smoked and drank.
Yeah, most
and
of them
did cocaine, I'm sure, as well.
I have a different topic very quickly. I think I mentioned, well, we're just going to have to stop saying I mentioned this before. You've heard this story before, but we try to make it new on the podcast. Recently, I got a Ningen Doku, so I got a physical at the hospital, and they wanted me to take an x-ray, and so you take your shirt off, and he said, you put your phone in another room. And I'm like, why is that? He said, it's not really good for phones. It's okay for my lungs? Yeah, it really screws up phones, but you're going to be fine. And this is an old machine. It just smells old.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like from the 70s.
And it's scary because you go into it and you're like, has this thing been like inspected in like 20 years? Like, are we sure I'm not getting a lethal dose of radiation?
Does this thing leak?
Yeah.
No, not recently.
We bought it from Siberia. No, it was in great condition.
We got it from Chernobyl. Great deal. Good deal from Chernobyl. They were really cheap. You could just walk up and take it away.
Yeah, exactly.
There was nobody to stop you because it was Chernobyl, you know. And I said, so when are you going to take it? He goes, well, first you take off your shirt and you put this here and you don't move, and then you wait for me to leave the room. And I said, but I see a clicker over there. Is that what that's for? And he goes, oh, it can be used for that, but I'm going to leave the room. And I said, but is it safe? And he goes, yeah, but make sure I'm out of the room first.
This sounds like
make sure I'm out of the room.
This sounds like the Soviet, in the Soviet Union, they used to have this thing where, tangent, but they used to have this thing where they wanted to get rid of somebody, the KGB or whatever, so they called him up. They got him to come to this room. He just went in. They said, oh, wait, we're going to have a meeting with you. And the guy's like really scared. He goes into the room, sits down. He's waiting. Nobody shows up. And then the door opens and the guy goes, oh, sorry, it's not today. We made a mix up. You can go home. So the guy goes home, and then a few months later he dies of cancer because they irradiated him in the room. It was like a sealed room with lead, and they irradiated him to kill him. So I can understand the feeling. You're like, oh, why are you going to be out there?
And I asked the guy, and I said, you're not going to stay in the room with me? And he goes, no, it's not safe for me to stay in the room. And I'm like, but it's safe for me to stand here with this thing strapped to my chest? And he goes, well, I haven't had children yet. I said, okay, well.
Well, they do it. They do like 500 of those a day. So I think if they were exposed to like 500 chest x-rays, they would kind of not be good for their health.
It's just.
But I get it, man.
But, I mean, you could probably describe it better than I can. You've seen the x-ray rooms. There's no carpet or insulation or anything.
Yeah.
And it's just like tile floors. It could be a kitchen.
Yeah, because anything that they put in there is going to get irradiated, and they're going to have to throw it in a hazardous waste dump, right, at some point.
There's no plants.
Yeah, there's definitely not. There's just that giant, what do they call it, elephant's foot there in the corner of the room. And there's this clicking noise from this machine. I don't know what it is.
It's a giant. It's the size of a Volvo, this x-ray machine. And then you got a Volvo strapped to your chest. Then he click, click, click. He comes in. He looks at it. He looks at the x-rays. And he goes, I got to do it again. And I said, can you do it right this time? How many times do you have to do it? He goes, as many times as it takes. What did I ever do to you? I just met you.
Did you have to do the barium one? I had to do that the other day. That is, you got to roll around. See, I don't know if any of you guys have done this. Did they do this outside of Japan? I guess they must, right?
I've done it in the States.
You've done it in the States. I never did it in Canada, but you got to lie on this kind of this bed that moves around like with servo motors, and you're moving up and you're moving down, and you got to turn around. That's complicated.
So I said to him, what did I ever do to you, Panimayechi Parutsky? You don't speak Russian, right? I mean, they put in here my joke that I told, this year, 2024, was a leap year, but in Russia, they have leap days. Anytime you're near a window is a leap day in Putin's Russia. Did you hear that joke?
And he said, hey, let's have some tea after this. Let's talk about it.
He heard that joke, but let bygones be bygones. And you're going to be one of the bygones. My friend. Iranians and Armenians, when they're angry, and I think maybe Russell Peters has touched on that, and Arabs, when they're angry, they smile.
Yes.
My friend. Yes, you are very interesting. Yes, you are very funny. You really like your jokes a lot. Yeah, your jokes about jihad. Yeah, they're very, very funny. Here, come have some tea with me. Let's take a ride. You're very funny.
Do you know Barbizon Hotel?
You like? I saw a guy interview. He was very hostile, anti-Muslim. This is right after 9/11, and he went to a mosque in New York, and he's interviewing the imam. And the imam was very cordial, very good at PR. And he wore his shoes onto the prayer rug.
Oh, God.
The imam inside was going, "You infidel! How stupid are you?" But outside, he's like, "Oh, so you like to wear shoes on prayer rugs? Or is that what you do? Would you do that in a church?" He said, "Well, we don't have prayer rugs in a church. Would you put your feet on the pews?
Mm-hmm.
Would you put your feet on the cross?"
Right.
You know? And he said, "What should it, I'm sorry, did that offend you?" And he goes, No, fine, whatever you want to do." It's just that we don't do it that way, but you know what you do. Does that make you happy? Well, yeah, it does. That makes you happy to dishonor a prayer rug. Oh, I'm starting to understand you, my friend. Yes, we are good friends. I'm going to give you some tea later, and you're going to drink all of it. Where were you staying? Barbizon Hotel. I'll do one quick story. Well, earlier in the year, we did a Tokyo show. When Mike and Timmy and I, when we do shows, we don't really time each other so much. We do basically, I say like 8 to 10 minutes or something. If it's in that area, I don't time them. I don't time the comedians.
We just wait until people stop laughing, and then we slink off stage.
First minute.
Keeps things, quick.
But in Tokyo, when we went there, and we love Tokyo Comedy Store, they were very nice to us.
Tokyo Comedy Bar now, I think the store, they can't call it store anymore.
Tokyo Comedy Bar.
Yeah. You got to take the bar exam to get in.
Yeah.
So,
but they're very strict, and it's understandable. I mean, they're strict on time because everybody wants some stage time.
Oh, they're hungry for stage time.
Yeah, everybody wants some. And so when they do open mic or they do shows, you'll get, I think we got 4 minutes. We were told 4 minutes. But they gave us some slack because we were from Nagoya and we run our own shows. And they may have people that want to come down and play with us. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a barber's bargain where the barber will not charge another barber for a haircut, and then you kind of scratch each other's backs. And that's what we were doing, and we would do the same for them. So here's a little trick I thought I would share. When I went up there, they said you could do 6 or 7 if you want, but I don't know which is it, 6 or 7. So I want to close with a closer. I want to end with a good joke, but I don't know when I'm going to get the light.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the light is like 1 minute warning. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 minute warning. I forget. It's been a while.
And so what I did was I'm ready for my closer, but I still haven't got my light. I'm still going to take more time. Mm-hmm. Whatever time you give me, I'm going to take that. I haven't got the light yet. So I pretended, actually, you might remember this, I pretended to forget the joke because I was thinking of other things to put in before my closer. Mm-hmm. Once I get the minute, then I know how to lead up. But my closer is a minute long. Mm-hmm. So once I get the minute, I have to go directly into the closer. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of killing time. That's what was happening. But it was a good show. My son was up there.
Yeah, he really enjoyed your show. He was really having a good time.
We had dinner with the in-laws recently, and he said, I was telling one of my stories at dinner, and he said, "I know all your stories, Dad." And I said, "Yeah, you don't know all of them."
Oh.
But Mitaron's funeral, you're going to see a lot of people of a particular gender crying and gesturing with foot-long symbols, and then you're going to understand, wow, I really did have a fun life.
Well, he might know if he listens to this podcast.
Of course, I'm speaking metaphorically.
Of course. Mark has a very, very active fantasy life, just for all of you out there.
I have a lot of friends.
Yeah, in low places and high places.
Okay, Mark Bailey, Mike Miller, talk funny.